in Hong Kong, I spent a lot of time in Singapore, I've been in London, Paris, a couple places. So basically, how do I bring all that together? So I'm the one who's basically launched the network, and now it is kind of multiplied and going on. It's got its own life of its own in itself. But the last piece is SVBS Capital. That is basically we're launching a fund of funds. That's what a pension fund is. We just pick managers, right? So that's my expertise. And actually, he didn't make it here tonight, but the former chief investment officer of the San Francisco pension fund, and when he left San Francisco, the $20 billion San Francisco venture pension fund, he went to LaSera, which is the Los Angeles County pension fund, and that's about $50 billion. He is the chief investment officer. He is helping us develop that piece there. So we have actually worked together in the past. I'm really kind of excited about that. And there is no institutional product out there, right? There's no product for large institutions globally to be able to get in this space. How do you, because they all want to learn, but they're terrified, absolutely terrified. Well, we plan and have already started kind of helping them navigate that piece. So that I call the Blackstone piece. So Davos meets Bloomberg, meets McKinsey, meets Blackstone, and then people kind of get it. Very excited. It's been a ride like none other, but then you all know that. There's a lot of pieces to this revolution, and I want to talk about that in a few minutes because that's actually more important, okay? I'm actually going to make this go away because that's not so important. To me, what's important is this revolution and why it's important, what it can lead to. So, Peter.
Fantastic. Thank you. You can see why I didn't want to explain what the Silicon Valley blockchain society was, and I wanted him to basically do that. But also, I think it actually helps you to understand this conversation differently. Because a year ago, it's basically almost to the day, a year ago, we're here with Brian Behlendorf, when, you know, as much as everyone's raised their hands about blockchain, a year ago, honestly, it was much more nascent understanding. People didn't really get what was going on. And Brian, who was really on the forefront of that kind of thinking, he was this uber techie, was really kind of roughing it out and starting to kind of talk about these things in very kind of spacey and kind of speculative terms, let's say. And what's interesting now is here you are, we're talking about this kind of real businesses and all the kind of money that's starting to flow and the kind of need and the anxiety, what everyone's trying to figure it out. We've got a lot of folks here who know a lot too. So, well, let's just lay it out to make sure everybody's on the same page, because I know there are some people, as much as everyone kind of thinks they know it, when you distill for all the folks that you're starting to wrap their heads around it, how do you explain it? Just give your basics on the blockchain and basically kind of its significance to you. I mean, so that people, where do you fall in kind of, not just explaining it, but also how important is this revolution?
A couple of things. One, I say, first of all, I'm not an engineer, like most of the people in the room. So relax. No one's asking you to write code. Get over it. Understand the basic concepts. I mean, do you really know how your television works? Or your computer, but you use it? So, that's number one. Number two, what I try to say, well, I started out by saying, one, as I told my mother, who was 90 at the time, Ma, there's this thing called the internet, and it, you know, you saw how my first business, how I got, yeah, I know that, okay. So it revolutionized the way humans communicate and transact. Then that digital platform created a way for trillions of dollars in value to be created purely on that new digital platform. Netflix, Google, Facebook, whatever. It is a natural evolution and progression for there to be a digital currency. Why wouldn't there also be a new way to, why does it have to be $1 or a yen or a euro in this new, it's a natural evolution for this new medium, in my mind. So then it's like, oh, okay, yeah, sure, there should be, and that's what, in my mind, on its face, is what a Bitcoin represents. We can talk about all the other cryptocurrencies today. That's the hype, that's the sexy part of the protocol. Everyone's talking about cryptocurrencies. But then, blockchain. Blockchain is for me, in a way, a dream come true. I have lost faith in humanity's ability to solve its problems, its fundamental problems of getting along. So I looked to innovation and technology. What I did in 1.0 was I believed in, I drank the Kool-Aid. I thought, we were going to solve the world's problems, and everyone was going to be able to vote and be educated and fairness and all that. And no, Wall Street came and took it. And I participated in that, and I understand that. But none of us knew what it was doing, where it was going. Okay, now we do. And what blockchain represents to me is automated trust. Finally, the distributed ledger, that smart contract, will enable, finally, for trust to be baked in. If that's the foundation of our future society, there's nothing else I want to be a part of.
So, the automated trust, distributed ledger, automated trust. Now, so your cryptocurrency, the way you put that in context.
That's one protocol on the blockchain, yes.
And to what extent do you see that as distinct from other applications of blockchain, which we're going to start talking about here? Do you see that as a sideshow? Do you see it as an on-ramp?
Cryptocurrencies?
Yeah.
I'm glad you asked that. It's big. It's
Okay.
the reinvention of money. So, and sometimes I don't, we're going to be here for a while, so yes, I have to give it its due. It is unbelievably revolutionary. And that's why you have, when has any of us seen this many countries around the planet talking about the same, trying to figure out their regulations? When do they ever move that quickly before? Because we're talking about fundamentally taking money away from a government's ability to control or impact that money, their currency, with something else that they have no control over, and you can do whatever you want to do with it. So yes, it's profound and important. But the other uses of the blockchain, for me, are just as profound, especially in healthcare, especially in identity. I mean, look at, for example, a refugee situation. Can you imagine if Syrian refugees or Rohingya in Myanmar or any place around the world could actually be able, on their phone, to carry currency value, something of value that they can unleash somewhere else, that their identity is there, that maybe the longitude and latitude of their property back wherever they were is still intact there, and it's been acknowledged and recognized. So when the war stops, they can go back home and build a life again. Those are the kinds of things, their health records, these are the kinds of things that can be secure and verified on a blockchain. And that to me is an exciting future.
So we're kind of jumping ahead to this impact stuff, so let's go a little bit slower here.
Not impact.
Okay.
That's life.
Okay.
Impact is another process, but I understand what you're saying, but I think it's important, the revolution, in my mind, of what's taking place on every aspect of society. But yes, people are, with the sexy protocol is cryptocurrency, because we're talking about money and possible wealth creation quickly, and that's why people are leaning in on that.
Okay, so I'm just trying to walk people through it. There's people here who this is totally get it at this level, but we're doing this to an audience and other folks that might not totally get it. So talk about getting rid of the middlemen, the kind of the disruptive power of if you did have a functioning blockchain system up and running. That
my former profession?
Yeah, talk about
the law profession, the legal profession.
Well, exactly. So let's talk about a little bit about how you see that kind of.
Now, I don't know how much society is going to reject, or really be upset about the loss of lawyers.
Horrifying.
It's a horrifying thought, I know. But we're talking about a significant chunk, real estate, definitely any area of the financial services, accounting, auditing. Literally, think of the jobs, think of the folks and the careers that are out there, that those careers are going away. A lot of us are not, we're not, and it's not to be dismissed. That's another whole discussion about what have the impact on society and that transition, how fast that's going to happen. Automation in general. The impact, we haven't even, there's, of course we can talk about AI and then AR and VR, and where I think all this is ultimately where nobody knows where it's going, but that's ultimately where it's all going to converge. But yeah, the middleman is gone in a significant way. And because of smart contracts in particular, and the ability of that chain for those folks who are in that chain, part of that chain, to have visibility into what is taking place and what was supposed to happen. The funds don't get released unless the goods are delivered at that time, at this place, and if that didn't happen, the chain says no. So it kind of motivates folks, and therefore, hence, the concept of an automated trust system being introduced.
So just walk someone through, just who's not totally wrapped their head around that, exactly how that, so what essentially we have is we have a technological infrastructure that allows much of the transactional costs that used to be handled by human being middlemen.
All those fees, costs, and commissions,
that is
especially
essentially
money.
able to be done much more efficiently, much more cost effectively, with no real reason for that human being to actually be doing a lot of that. Is that
Essentially, it's almost machine to machine, right? Even if it's your device to someone else's device, peer to peer, right? It's just you giving me money and I'm giving you money. We didn't have to go through the bank to do that. And I mean, that's the dream, that's the goal, the freedom. But then also, does the government know that took place? The implications are massive and really varied. But the point is that ultimately it's cutting out middlemen. There's no tracking necessarily. It can be anonymous. It depends on the type of technology that you're using, the type of chain that you're using. And that's another whole discussion. But yes, that's ultimately middlemen are just not needed. They're for basic transaction.
Okay, so I'm touching on a bunch of things here that we're going to open to everybody here in a little bit here. And so let's just talk a little bit about the investment environment. When we talked before, just the amount of money, the interest of people with money, the funds that are starting to get tuned into this. You're kind of a money guy. Just describe to me how you're seeing the financial environment right now around blockchain, maybe even with an environment that people understood, which was the dot-com boom, kind of late 90s kind of thing. Is there, talk a little bit about what you're seeing now, and if there's any kind of historical analogies in your mind of what's happening.
The historical analogies are the crazy parties and the expensive receptions and over-the-top events. That nonsense is back to a degree. What is interesting, though, this is decentralized, right? So people who are not in the industry, you have to be in the internet industry to participate in all that and see it up close and be invited to those parties or have a company that was funded and was doing something. Here it's a little different, right? People are making money trading crypto. They can be in Des Moines, they can be wherever, and they're spending their money and figuring out how to get liquidity for that token that they have, and then they're using that to go spend and buy stuff and do whatever. So it is a little, it's similar but different in that sense. It's a lot more distributed. People participating in the upside, the immediate current upside of what's been happening, that's been generated by this industry.
With the coins, but what about, let's say, VC money or investment money, money going into startups? Can you describe the size of that? The kind of
size?
It's starting to move in a big way.
What's happening is, remember, most venture funds, you raise money from large institutions, you can't just invest in anything. You gave that institutional investor, that LP, that limited partner, a thesis on how much you're going to invest in. None of them had, cryptocurrencies or blockchain in their thesis. So what you have is now a lot of partners at venture funds using their private money and pooling the partners' money, and they're the ones that's been the first wave. Now, currently, we just heard this week that Andreessen Horowitz is about to launch a crypto fund. There are more and more of mainstream VCs going to do that, but not many yet. There's still, because a lot of them have made a ton, I know people who've made a ton of money, and they're not necessarily will or have any interest in starting a fund and having to report to an LP and and all that. No, just why don't the partners here invest and make some money. I see a lot of that going on, and that's being real. So let's see. I think more and more funds are coming, but that's part of the reason why we want to launch our fund of funds, because there are plenty of also crypto hedge funds out there where people have pulled together their money, really made some money in the recent run-up, and now they're starting to look at taking other people's money, but they're also trading and making activity happen. So, which is separate from what you're asking about, which is institutional money, which is venture money or private equity or whatever.
Well, that, or I'm just trying to understand, is the money going to, is there a lot of money moving now to startups that are really working on blockchain, not necessarily just the crypto stuff, but the blockchain kind of businesses really starting to...
Is there a lot of money?
Or how would you quantify it anyway?
There is money, and there are tens of millions of dollars being moved around, hundreds of millions of dollars, but it's not as big as what was going on with the internet business. Many people are doing just that, they're doing an ICO. And some of them, especially, they're up until probably the end of last year, people could put together, you know, this pad you have, you and I could sit here and come up with a quote-unquote white paper and put it out there, and if you do enough marketing and create a Telegram channel and get another 10, 15, 20,000 people to join that and talk about whatever you want them to talk about, and then do your ICO, and somebody will wire some money to you. That's how crazy it's been. Now, you know, we have members who've raised $128 million in 30 days.
In a company, in a blockchain company, or
Selling their token,
okay,
which means there's no equity, there's no board seat, there's no requirement to tell anybody anything, any investor anything, no rules. They sold a token.
$128 million.
$128 million. So, and that's just one. But I'm saying that's an anomaly. That's not every, but there's plenty of companies that have been raising 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 10 million. There's a lot more than a lot of those out there. But that's changing too, because a lot of that was, you know, the public money. That was just an average person's money. It wasn't, quote unquote, sophisticated or a qualified investor. That was just people thinking, oh, here's a way for me to get rich quick.
Well, one thing I know when we talked to Brian a year ago, Brian was trying to make the comparison that the blockchain world, from a technological point of view, was kind of where the internet was in 94-ish, if I recall. You're saying it's a year ago, 94. And I knew Brian back in the Wired magazine days, and we both were tied into Wired, and that was early. I mean, this isn't .com fraud. That was kind of early, and the money there wasn't flowing. Yeah, exactly. It wasn't flowing big. There was money flowing, but it wasn't anything like the craziness of 99 and 2000. So I'm just wondering, if you had to kind of, any analogy you'd put now, that are we 95, 96? Are we, I mean, what kind of money or what kind of thing is happening that might be somewhat analogous?
You know, I'm living through both now. And a lot of people ask me, you know, what's the analogy? There was a time, that time has come and gone. That was pretty much last year. And people are a lot more curious, a lot more, I would say, more skeptical about these ICOs. And so that frothiness has pretty much gone away. That happened a lot quicker. Remember, we had a 6, 7, 8 year run in the internet space. It just kept going up. It kept going until like 2001. And so it's different. So I'm trying to, if there's a year, it's tough because this has happened so quickly. This is crazy. 10 months we have this kind of membership and this kind of asset. That doesn't even make sense. I'm living it. I'm doing it. It's mine. It's my company. I'm like, I can't believe it. But I'm not going to turn it down. But I do know the opportunity is there because I think that we're buying into that dream.
Well, we're going to get everyone's opinion here in a little bit about what year are we in, or if there's any analogies. There's 4 areas that we chatted a little bit about before I want to touch on, and we're going to stick this out a little bit for other discussions later to draw other people in this conversation. There's 4 big issues that you and I were talking about earlier that has to do with all this. There's one, let's say, the regulatory issues. So why don't you just give your quick hit on that, and we're going to draw other people into that shortly. But what are the issues that we're starting to face now in this space around regulation?
Number one, of course, the SEC. Everyone is talking about and concerned about what is the SEC actually going to do. And I think it's clear, at least in our organization, we try to encourage anyone that presents to our members, and our members to only look at really security tokens, so that would require registration and require the same rules as if it was a stock, the shares. That, to me, that I think is inevitable. So to answer your question directly, I think that's heavy regulation is inevitable.
In the coming year, couple years?
Next week. It's going to come at any moment. And there's some people in the room, I won't necessarily point out, we would know that definitely, or we'll have more of a better idea of when that is, when the feds are coming. But definitely regulation of all sorts. So, because, you know, yes, the hype was around criminality, and, you know, folks like us who are in the game, we know, do you know how hard it is to liquidate a Bitcoin? Do you know how hard it is to, especially massive amounts of it, because you've been selling drugs? I mean, please. That is like such a sideshow of a great media hype. It's relevant, it's important, it has to be dealt with. Just like on the corner of right there, 3rd and Folsom, dealing with the crack that's being sold right now. Right. So in cash, in fiat currency. So the idea is, you know, this crypto is going to now exacerbate or accelerate that. And they found the guy who, you know, ran Silk Road. I mean, they get him. You know, to unleash that kind of on the market, it's not hard, you know, to kind of find that. And that's why certain tokens are coming that are very, that are certainly anonymous or attempt to be, like Monero, Zcash, and some others. But still, there's a lot of work in that area globally to try to pursue that. That's a small part of the market. So there's the criminal stuff, but it's primarily just regulation on how to communicate with investors. If I bought a token, and I feel like this, I really don't have a problem with the regulation. I've been regulations in general. It's like, yeah, you're taking people's money, and you have absolutely no accountability for that. Maybe, you know, we haven't even built anything. We just had, you and I got together over beer, and we came with a white paper and raised $8, $10, $12 million from, you know, an Uber driver and a bunch of others. It's like, that's, to me, is not responsible. That's not good for society. It's not helping the industry at all.
So we're having regulation. Also, international side of that, you mentioned SEC, US, but you think?
Very well. It's country by country.
So it's going to be happening all over.
Yeah, there's interesting things happening. In, you know, Gibraltar is doing its thing. Switzerland is doing its thing. You know, now Japan is doing. China, you know, shut it down. But you know, China's always done that. It's like this thing, crypto, you know, currency came along, and people were making lots of money mining, doing this stuff, and then, you know, they stopped the bus, everybody off, and then they only allowed, you know, Chinese nationals to get on, and then it's okay, guys. You know, so we'll see what happens there. But yeah, there's no consistency around the world. So everyone's trying to play out, where can I go to trade, where can I go to participate, where can I go to purchase stuff.
The business models, another area. To what extent do you think we're starting to get realistic business models that are sustainable, could really warrant kind of
I'd like to know his response to that as well. We're going
to hear from a lot of folks on that, but just here quickly, yeah, where are we in this space? Are there real serious underlying, like, are we really getting to the point where this is starting to really start to scale?
No, we're not.
Okay.
I don't know of one business model that's out there that's really killing it or doing it. I don't know anyone that's profitable. And all I know is about a bunch of launches of different types of chains. Now people want to dominate and have their chain and be the winning chain. But I see a lot, what I'm really pleased to see is a lot more serious analysis going in. There are firms, multi-coin capital. There's a bunch of groups out there that are really starting to do analysis of these technologies and really kind of, they're starting to get washed out, some of the weaker ones, let's say. And the ability to go from chain to chain, cross-chain activities, or working with trading, cross-exchange trading. There's a lot of things coming that are really interesting, but no, there is no successful blockchain business model at this point.
How close are we getting it? I mean, because that's the critical piece, right?
This is all so nascent. This is like, okay, this is internet, this is almost TCP/IP is being introduced.
So we're just starting out?
We're just starting out. So it's a land grab.
Now, I do know there's entrepreneurs out here with some business models that we're going to check in with a little bit here. Social impact. People are really starting to talk about it, and it was interesting. I went to one of his gatherings in which the people that were presenting all had these really interesting social impact ideas. We've got a couple of them in here, and we're going to put a shout out in a minute here. But what do you make of that as a set of issues? Is it starting to really get now to not just making money things, but things that really make a difference out there?
Oh, there's unbelievably great projects out there. I'm not convinced yet that they're getting the funding that they need or getting the traction that they need. But I'm really pleased, and I'm glad you came to where literally, normally we have about 4 presenters. And normally the presenters, I usually have it where it's 2 to 3 are actually for-profit entities, and always the 4th speaker is either, you know, an impact investing related, or doing something on wellness or health, or, you know, it could be talking about anything that's not money making related. So I'm trying to create a holistic kind of environment for our members. So the impact folks and the impact movement is phenomenal. There's a lot of stuff going around globally, around the world globally. It's unbelievable what's happening. I mean, it's for environment, healthcare, and well, definitely, I mean, there's people in this room that I could speak to about it more directly. But when I step back, and when you ask about the financing and the money part of it, which all is the fuel, is the lifeblood, I'm only seeing that done occasionally. It's almost like, you know, in a lot of cases, this is crowdfunding on steroids, like we're talking about.
Right? That's a great theory.
And so, yes, there are folks getting that initial chunk of money, but what about the further? They built the chain, they built what they were doing, they got a couple of, I wouldn't say customers, but a couple of programs going, or something to support what they're trying to do, prove that it does exist. But where's the rest of that money? Where's the rest of that follow-up capital? And that's where I'm seeing a real lack or miss, or something is missing there.
And the final little issue, when we open it up to some other folks here, is technology. Do you feel, I mean, I know you're not coming to this from a technology point of view, but do you feel, what are the issues that we're kind of bumping up against? And then we're going to open it up for you guys.
Competition. There's so many different protocols out there now that they're just almost distracting. So people are playing on their coins, on the coins that are issued. So I have, you know, there's EOS, there's a variety of different platforms that are coming, protocols, blockchain protocols that are coming, and then they'll issue a token maybe, and then people want to buy that token and speculate on that token and add it to the mix of the other, you know, 1,500 or 2,000 or whatever number of tokens there are out there now, and try to make money off it. But I'm not seeing yet the implementation of blockchain the way the promise has presented itself.
And that is a good time to go to a few people I'm going to call out here. And I want to go to you, Brian, if you don't mind. Part of the deal here is, if you folks, yeah, a couple of folks, why don't you come to the front? Because I think, yeah, and let's give him a mic here. And use the four issues we're talking about here, the technology issues. You had talked about it a year ago, of where you were and some big missing pieces to figure out. Give us a little update on where you think we are, and to what extent the challenges on the tech front right now to trying to figure out some key pieces of the whole blockchain space.
Yeah, there's a lot of technology that's being funded by a lot of these piles of money being amassed, right? Some of that will live on. Some of that will kind of get to a 90th percentile and then be dropped when the next interesting thing comes along. And I worry sometimes there'll be so much friction actually that we'll see the same great idea implemented 10 times before one that actually gets traction. And maybe that's just the way startup technologies work anyways in early markets, so that's kind of fine. In Hyperledger, in the year since we talked, we've grown to 10 different technologies kind of within our greenhouse. And one of them focusing on distributed digital identity. How do we get out of the sense of your profile, your identity being defined by servers at Facebook or at Google, and instead something that's much closer to you that looks like a wallet, to compatibility with Ethereum, to being able to do cross-chain types of transactions. And that work is hard, and it's still ongoing, and it's above the layer of TCP/IP. Fortunately, TCP/IP is still going to be with us, right? We get to start with that. But it's still a lot of groundwork to do. But we're in production now on a couple of the technologies that have come out of Hyperledger are running on production networks that are doing things like tiny little projects like in Japan, the education system, the education department of the government has worked with Sony to build kind of a credentials blockchain to be able to track, okay, who really graduated from where, so that people can't lie on their resumes anymore. Small project like that too. There's a banking network in China with about 20 banks trading collateral that the total assets being traded on that network are in the hundreds of billions, with a couple billion a day in flow. And that one project's about half the size of all the rest of the cryptocurrencies put together. So there's this like dark matter of technology projects going on that are people typically not doing ICOs, typically just trying to use these technologies to go and solve some rather prosaic needs. And you're not going to see that show up on CoinMarketCap, where if you hit refresh, right? But a lot of good work going on. But like the early days of the web, there's going to be a lot of, remember Java application servers? It seemed like there were 1,000 of these different Java application servers, and eventually, it boiled down to a few, typically open source ones. So I think we're going to see the same things happen. I just kind of wish that the ICO-driven token kinds of stuff ended up encouraging people to collaborate rather than encouraging them to add a 5% little difference and then do their own ICO, right? And kind of fork and fork and fork. Because it's really one of the hardest things to get going in any technology movement, especially in open source, is to get people to put aside what they perceive as their differences and work on common code. So we're still trying to do that.
Can I ask you a question and tying into your opinion too, because you kept trying to get an analogy between the internet early era. I have never seen so much petty attacking of each other's protocols ever before in my life. It's like back in the day, we were, oh, hey, you're doing that. Oh, you want a dog site? Okay, well, go for it. Who cares? It was like, oh, that's wonderful, that's smart. Not this time. People are like, oh, that's a bullshit protocol. That's not really going to work.
It's because the people working on Gopher and HTTP didn't have tokens in their pockets that varied in their value in real time, depending upon the sentiment.
Unfortunately,
and that's got to drive a bit of that vitriol.
Look at the communities against Ripple. I mean, either you love it or you hate it. This thing, and it's weird. It's like, what's going on out here? I've never seen.
But that's interesting. Well, so the people you're dealing with that are open source don't have skin in the game in terms of coin or necessarily.
And some of them do. I mean, you can build tokenized kinds of things on top of the technology stuff that we put out. It just the technology stacks themselves aren't hardwired to Ethereum or hardwired to any particular token. And I think we will see a universe of lots of tokens, whether some that are public, a whole lot that are essentially like frequent flyer miles, and that they're kind of private or around kind of a specific cluster of companies, and some that'll be like a token representing your car, right, or your title to your car, right, or a title to a house, or a title to a diamond, right. I'm not so keen though on the tokenization of everything on the planet. I think there's a lot that still happens that happens in society based on intrinsic value, based on kind of folks working together, and I think we'll find a balance between those.
Final thing is just, in the last year, have you been encouraged by how much has happened in terms of the technology and how much movement's made and how much has been accomplished? Or are you frustrated by more to come? I'm just curious your little quick update on the tech front.
Encouraged in absolute amounts, discouraged in success rates. Like I feel like for the capital raised, we're getting much less out of it than we had in the first few years of the web. In absolute amounts, stuff's in production now, and we're doing the equivalent of remember it took forever to take credit card orders like over at SSL connection, right? And to feel confident in like doing that. That took 6-7 years, I'd say, after from 91 when the first browser came out to 98, 99 when people finally were like in the habit of buying things with credit cards online. And that window has shrunk to basically 2 years, right? In the last 2 years, I think. And to businesses putting core business processes on these systems, that's happening now. It's still it's early days, but value is being created. So I'm really happy.
Let's bring Misha. Let's bring Misha up here a second here. These are just folks that I know are doing amazing stuff.
Hi everyone.
Serial entrepreneur. Why don't you just identify yourself? You're in this space now. I'd love to know a little bit of the business model thing and a little bit of the regulation kind of sense of where we're at with both those issues.
Okay, so maybe I give a quick background.
Yeah, give a little background.
So I've been in the Valley in San Francisco since 2011. I started mining, I think, in 2012. I'm a big fan of decentralization. I have built systems where basically we try to build decentralized telecommunication system. A lot to do with mesh networking. And in my current company, I'm building a network for connecting objects, IoT devices, using decentralization of the networks by leveraging everyone's smartphones. And so I've been digging through all the different rabbit holes for figuring out how can we leverage the blockchain technology, and on the regulatory side, how can we bring a cryptocurrency that can help us spark this network by incentivizing what we call miners for building this network. because it's a full software infrastructure. So I kind of go back to what David mentioned. I think today, if you are looking to actually do an ICO or raise money using the mechanism, there's no discussion. It's a capital formation. In this case, you are most probably a security, and I think it would be suicidal to do differently and go and raise money in the form of an ICO today in the US without applying the right rules. But there are still ways, because, for example, Bitcoin is not a security. You have different models of you can mine. So I think there are still ways of how you can avoid a heavy regulatory environment. You can also do things with only people outside of the US. So different ways. But if you look at building your company and raising money that way, you definitely are a security. And there is a gray area where, when this token basically starts to be, by being a security, at some point turns into a real utility. I think that's still very gray where we are today. There's no clear path, I think, for that. So I would say to entrepreneurs, if there are entrepreneurs in the room, just be careful. So.
Because, and do you think the solution for that is going to come through the government regulation, or is there a way to solve, how do you get through that gray area? What do we need to solve that, I guess, is what I'm trying to get at.
That's a very hard question. I'm not a lawyer, and I don't do lobbying too, but I think it's going to take a very, very long time, because I think there's a huge fracture, and because just the regulators don't understand the technology. And unfortunately, I feel that the pace of technology is going so fast that it's going to take more and more time for regulation to catch up on the pace of where the technology is going.
Interesting. So we got a tech update, a little bit of business model. How about Ben? Is Ben Bartlett here? Ben, why don't you come up here? Here's a social impact example, and we're going to open up to everybody shortly here. But yeah, maybe if you want to jump up here in the front, that's fine. Ben's the vice mayor of Berkeley here, city councilman. And why don't you give a little of your background? But he's trying to bring this blockchain into essentially municipal bonds, right? Come over here a little bit, yeah, into the light. Sorry, yeah, go ahead. Do you want to explain what you're doing?
Sure, thank you, Peter. So essentially, we're trying to solve for the fact that the Trump budget has kind of eviscerated our ability to fund affordable housing. By lowering the corporate tax rate from 39% to 18%, the tax equity finance market is in jeopardy. And that's what we use to do our duty. And in Berkeley, we have over 1,000 homeless people. And at the same time, we have a larger issue that we're facing the next generation, the zero asset problem. We're supposed to own nothing. No physical assets and no financial assets. So we thought, okay, well, let's use the technology here to issue bonds, municipal bonds, on the blockchain. Disintermediate the process. So cut out the middleman. That allows you to lower costs tremendously, and also to offer the bonds to ordinary people. Ordinary bonds cost $5,000 or $100,000, but now we can issue them in increments of $1, $5, $25. And in this way, the community can own an asset tied to a physical asset. So at once you solve for both problems. So I'm really excited about it. And going further in the crypto world, recognizing that yes, there is the future of currency is already happening, it's already upon us, and that currency is programmable. So you can receive your interest payments from the bonds that you own in the form of a local currency, a digital token, a tokenized interest payment. And that token is itself programmable to be used in local stores. It's a communication device, so you can vote on the next projects. You can generate tokens by doing acts of goodwill, like volunteering at a homeless shelter, or winning a spelling bee, or anything. Coupons at Pete's, come to that coupon, 15 cents off. So it's meant to really prove out this idea of a programmable currency that can drive local value and commit some of those public resources to not just physical ownership of the assets in the community, but also drive those resources into the community and prevent this wasteland coming our way next year of closed stores. We all know that 2019 is supposed to be the worst year historically in history. And so we have blight-affected communities right now. This is one way to drive business into the community.
And where are you in the process, just to kind of cap that up? So you've introduced that to Berkeley, but it's not, the full council has to
So last week, and I wish you guys had come. It was Tuesday actually this week. It was pretty tremendous. We had our teach-in session. Myself and my panel of experts. We had a PowerPoint on the screen. We taught the council, taught the community about what this project looks like and the benefits and how the future is upon us. And we were well received, and we expect to pass it this Tuesday and be the first community in the world to issue bonds to the blockchain.
Berkeley. James, let's get James. James here is also doing social impact, and then we're going to open it to everyone shortly here. But is Chelsea here? Chelsea Rustin? I don't see her. Anyhow, James, yeah, give us a little, just give us a little sense of what you're doing, but also your social impact side of where you see all the potential here.
Yeah. So, I think one of the challenges that this
maybe you should identify yourself a little bit.
Yeah, James Snusa, Digital Ring, UX Global, a bunch of other affiliations. I think one of the challenges that this young technology and culture faces is leaders that represent a possible future. And David, I see, is one of those. And there are others, and we've built community around leaders that have a purpose-driven ethos to them. In the virtual reality world, in the AI world, and now in the blockchain world. The Lambo crap from the crypto community has to stop. And they got to see real positive leaders that are here doing the real work and are embodying the possibility of what this technology is bringing forth in the world. Activists that have been doing this work for 10 years, speaking of myself, but others that have been doing it for their whole lives, we now have a tool to disintermediate governments, corporations, currencies, and to really create new models. And that can be, I'll give you some examples. So we're working with Startup Society Foundation right now in their summit in DC focused on Puerto Rico. Bringing blockchain in, cryptocurrencies in with many of the leaders that have started to move down to Puerto Rico. New food systems, blockchain on the food system. Hurricane relief. All kinds of applications, solar, energy, you name it, could disintermediate the whole bond issue and the, 80, 90 billion in debt that they're facing in Puerto Rico now? Who signed on for that? Where are they now? Move it to cryptocurrency. Forget the fiat. There's all kinds of ways that this can be applied for health, for new governance systems, for new policy, to accelerate the deployment of all of the solutions that are available for new food systems, energy, etc. Base of the pyramid, Maslow's base of the pyramid. So I think in the impact world, I love David's answer on this is life. This is not some investment category, or CSR from corporates or whatever. No, this is like taking care of people and creating some new mechanisms for the way we want to live. And there's the hype around it, there's the investment stuff, there's the tech bros. They need to go. This is some serious shit that we can do with this technology. We've been waiting for this for a long fucking time.
Thank you. Let's give this to here. All right, let's open this up to everybody. Now, there's folks that we just were chumming the waters here with folks that we know have strong opinions on all this stuff. But we really want to hear what do you guys? I mean, is there pushback to this stuff? Is there critical pushback? Is there other folks with great success stories? Other questions that want to go here? And let's start here with Lena, but also let's see hands if people do want to. Okay, a couple of around here. You stand up, identify yourself, and then.
Hello everyone, I'm Lena Konstantinovich, and I'd like to share an example that both illustrates some of the impact questions you were asking, but also how far and how fast things have evolved in the space. So last year in May, I was in Romania. I brought a delegation of clean tech companies there, and met with one of the...
You want to face the folks?
Sure.
Yeah.
I met one of the local entrepreneurs who had built a very successful energy company providing 100% renewable energy mix to their customers when the markets got deregulated there. He was growing so fast, in 18 months he was $1 million in revenue and couldn't keep up, his bank guarantees couldn't keep up with how fast he was growing to purchase energy. And so he was looking for capital because of the dearth of capital in markets like Romania, where